Welcome back to the show. Today I want to share some thoughts with you on the theme of watch your mouth. Yeah, watch your mouth. That's an uncomfortable theme. And I think you can relate, and I definitely can relate, that sometimes some not so nice things have come out of your mouth, and I guarantee you not so nice things have come out of my mouth. So let's kind of jump into this theme here today. Words that manipulate are sometimes, you've heard them before. You have a choice of maybe listening to your own words and tweaking your words before you speak. And then there are words that create. And oftentimes we engage mouth before we engage brain. Have you ever engaged your mouth before you thought about what you're going to say? Whew. I've done it, been there, done that. I want to say hundreds of times, but I certainly don't want to exaggerate. At least dozens of times where I've engaged my mouth before I turned on my brain cells. In the New Testament of the Bible, there was a guy named Paul, and Paul wrote or had people write a good chunk of the New Testament. And over in the book of Ephesians, a paraphrase of the text says this. It says, "Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth." Again, let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for edification or building other people up according to the need of the moment, so that it will give you grace to those who hear. Another way to say it, another paraphrase is, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. Yeah, it's hard not to let stuff come out of your mouth, especially when you're angry, especially when you're really, again, I don't want to be rated G today, but really frustrated at other people that have maybe done you wrong. Not allowing corrupt words come out of your mouth is sometimes very difficult. In fact, the actual Greek text of that piece of the scripture says, let no rotten words come out of your mouth. Let me tell you a quick personal story that I haven't succeeded in, but I'm struggling to succeed in. There's something called a stimulus and there's something called a response. The stimulus is what you want to do initially, and the response is how you respond to it. So years ago, when I was in my teens and 20s, and sometimes in my 30s, when something would stimulate me in the sense of tick me off or make me angry or frustrated, I would respond immediately. The older I'm getting, I'm trying to extend the delay between the stimulus and the response. And I think that's a great idea for you too, that you don't have to always respond immediately to a situation. And for me, I've purposely delayed responding in certain ways because I knew, based on I have a temper, that when I respond immediately, the response tends to be more than the situation's worth. In other words, if somebody offends me or makes me mad, how I respond to that sometimes is going to be multiple times higher than really what the person deserves for something that maybe they meant to do or they didn't mean to do. Again, I go back to what it says in the Greek language. Let no rotten words come out of your mouth. So Paul, he continues to kind of talking about watching your mouth. He says, don't tell lies, and don't be deceitful, and don't fall into the habit of deceiving other people. Now, I'll just put it out there that when you tell a half-truth or when you tell, there's something called a white lie, in quotes, or a black lie, or a half a lie, or long story short, any falsehood you share, or maybe you don't give the whole truth, maybe you give a piece of a story, it's all trying to manipulate people and trying to play mind games with other people. So why not tell the truth consistently? So again, I'll say this multiple times on the show, that Paul is suggesting to all of us that we put away unwholesome talk. Paul mentions also in the same book of Ephesians, he says, when our mouths are not filled with thanksgiving, when our tendency is to complain and criticize, then we're letting unwholesome talk come out of our mouths. It's almost like looking at life, and I'll tell you flat out that it's not easy. In fact, some days it's near impossible. To look at the glass as half full instead of half empty. Am I an expert in that arena? Absolutely not. In fact, I fail miserably at that some days. But to look at things positively versus negatively helps us get through this difficulty of letting all our pain and all of our agony and all of our stress coming out of our mouth and then exploding onto other people. Rabbi Joseph, I can't pronounce his last name, he's the author of a book called Words That Hurt, Words That Heal. He says, he talks about this. He says he's often asked audiences if they can go 24 hours without saying any unkind words about or to another person. Invariably, a small number of listeners raise their hands and signify a yes. Others laugh, and quite a large number of people are like, no way. And then he responds to his students. He says this: those who can't answer yes must recognize that you have a serious problem. If you cannot go 24 hours without drinking liquor, you're addicted to alcohol. If you can't go 24 hours without smoking, you're addicted to nicotine. Similarly, if you cannot go 24 hours without saying unkind words about others, then you have lost control over your tongue. A guy named Rick Ezel wrote that about this teacher, Rabbi Joseph. Now, I discovered years ago that hanging around wise people can help you watch your mouth. And if you notice that the truly wise people are very cautious, and it doesn't seem like they're being cautious, but they're very wise with what they allow out of their mouths. Let me share a quick goofy story. When I was a kid, I would say 12, 13, 14 years old, my parents took a trip away from home. My grandparents stayed where we lived and watched my brother and I. My brother's a couple years younger than me. So a neighbor across the street came knocking on the door. I was upstairs at the time in the house, and knocked on the door and was yelling and screaming that I was jumping on the woman's car. Now again, 12, 13, 14 years old. I'm upstairs the whole time. I wasn't even outside that day, I don't think at all. But she was yelling and screaming that I was jumping on her car and destroying her car and making a mess of her car, etc. So I come downstairs hearing all this ruckus going on, and then I started going off, losing my temper as a young kid, that how dare this woman accuse me of this stuff because I wasn't even outside. So I was getting angry, I was getting mouthy. So I remember my grandfather turned to his left and looked at me. He says, "John, let me handle this." So his demeanor, very phlegmatic, very logical guy, very soft-spoken guy. I can't remember exactly what he said, but his tone was so calm and so comforting, even though the woman was being dramatic and very nasty and mouthy and getting all ugly. He didn't allow that ugliness to impact his attitude, which I was mirroring her ugliness. I was getting nasty. I wanted to get in her face. I was about 10 or 12 feet away from her at that time. But my grandfather, Philip McKinney, by the way, is his name, he didn't allow those people, or that woman, I should say, to disrupt his peace. And I think you and I struggle with that sometimes, that we allow people who are negative, who have mouth problems, and I'll be polite, who have difficulties, who have struggles and issues, that we then mirror those issues and those struggles in conversations. Instead of being the wise one, instead of being the stronger one, and not allowing their issues to distract you from your peace. Again, I'll tell you, in these shows, I am not an expert in some of this stuff. But maybe just an idea or two can give you maybe another angle of looking at what's going on maybe in your own home or in your own workplace or in your social events. You have people coming in with issues going on, and they're angry about work, and they're angry about their families, and they come in all riled up and all angry and all frustrated. And then before you know it, within minutes, you have multiple people that were fine and calm and cool, and now they're all angry because of one person. You and I can control what comes out of our mouth better than you think that you can control what comes out of your mouth. There's a story I read a while back. I discovered the importance of healthy counsel in a half Ironman triathlon. After a 1-mile swim and a 56-mile bike ride. I didn't have much energy left for the 13.1-mile run. Neither did the fellow jogging next to me. I asked him how he was doing and soon regretted posing that question. This stinks. This race is the dumbest decision I've ever made. He had more complaints than a taxpayer at the IRS. My response to him was, goodbye. I know if I listened too long, I'd start agreeing with him. I caught up with a 66-year-old grandmother. Her tone was just the opposite. You'll finish this, she encouraged. It's hot, but at least it's not raining. One step at a time. Don't forget to hydrate. Stay in there. I ran next to her until my heart was lifted and my legs were aching. I finally had to slow down. No problem. She waved and kept going. So which one of these two describes the counsel you seek? Max Lucado shared that story. So do you want to hang around the complainers and the whiners? Or do you want to hang around like this granny who maybe had been around those people and understood that what comes out of your mouth can really dictate how your mind thinks? Again, I struggle with that almost daily. But maybe a couple of these ideas are going to help you maybe be able to push past some of the stuff that you're dealing with in your own life. Over in the book of James, in the New Testament of the Bible, a paraphrase of this text says this. It says, this is scary. You can tame a tiger, but you can't tame a tongue. It's never been done. The tongue runs wild, a killer. With our tongues, we can bless others, and with the same tongues, we can curse the very men and women around us. Curses and blessings out of the same mouth. Now, you think about that. How many times haven't you just let it out and vomited all negative stuff all over people around you? Been there, done that. In fact, there's a book out by Tim Ferriss, and he talks about, it's kind of an extreme illustration about it, but he talks about sometimes when you want to lash out at other people, it's like wearing a suicide belt. I know it's an extreme example, but when that happens, you don't just impact yourself, you impact everybody around you. So your words can literally destroy people, or they can lift people up. So watching what comes out of your mouth and what comes out of your fingers, guilty as charged, again, I'm no expert, can really have a detrimental effect on people around you that you may not even know, or you may not even meet. Somebody said that cold words freeze people, and yet warm words loosen people. Have you ever tried to do something that was out of your box, and the people that believed in you decided to plant seeds in your mind through the words they spoke to encourage you to do the great things that you wanted to do anyway? I can remember back in 1988 when I got into the insurance industry. I was 21 years old. I had hair back then. It was dark. And there was no way I could see myself in the insurance business because I was 21, first of all, in retail at the time, making, I think, $7.50 an hour back in the spring of 88, in the summer of 88. And then my uncle, Harry Rainier, he says, John, why don't you talk to this guy named Joe Ciampa, who at that time was working for Sun Life Insurance Company of America in Baltimore, Maryland. I was like, there's no way. No. I couldn't even see it. I couldn't even imagine it. At the time, I stuttered horribly. I couldn't even hardly say 2 words without falling over my own words. So he says, why don't you just go talk to Joe? So I was like, okay, if it'll make my Uncle Harry happy, I'll do it. Harry's a great guy. He was in the insurance business at that time, maybe 32, 33 years back then. So I scheduled an appointment with Joe Ciampa, and his sales manager, John McGinnis, came in, and we were talking, and he interviewed me, and make a very long story short, they decided to hire me. I was shocked. So I went from making from $7.50 an hour to, they started me at a higher rate, and then now still almost 29 years later, I'm still in the insurance business. Because John McGinnis primarily was the one who encouraged me every single day. Because I quit multiple times, quote, multiple times, because I didn't think I could do it. People would laugh at me, people would slam the door in my face, people would just assume that I was just not all there because I couldn't talk right. I wonder how many times people look at you and judge you based on not only what you say, but how you say it. And like I said a few minutes ago, that there are times in my life now where I bite my tongue when I want to lash out at somebody, because I know that, now again, I'm not always successful, but I'm trying, that I know that sometimes the words that I want to speak are not going to be healthy for the situation long term, because the words that you speak and the words that you speak carry a lot of weight in people's lives. Think about the people that have encouraged you over the years. Think about the people who have discouraged you over the years that you still remember. You look back through life and you realize, I wish I would not have heard those words, because those words have tripped you up for a very long time. Now, there's times that you and I have to understand that you have to place yourself, at least I do in my world, that you have to place yourself around people that pick you up. And I'll be polite, that maybe you have to divorce yourself from people that try to drag you down. So over in again, the book of James, James asks that, are the things that you're speaking, are they true? Are they true? Are the words that other people are speaking, are they true? Are they complete? How many times haven't you been in conversations with people that you know the story that they're sharing is not the whole story? That they are sharing a piece of the story to make them look good? That's wrong. That's unethical. That's unprofessional. That's immoral. The book of James talks about, are the words necessary? I know, I can tell you that there are times when you just want to I'll say it 4, 5, 6, 7 times today, that you want to vomit negativity to other people who, very frankly, may deserve that negativity. Maybe they deserve a payback in a big way, but is it really going to help the situation long term? And is it going to help your peace long term? Or is it going to trip you up? Is it going to step you up? Is it going to put a cloudy day over your life and your mindset that you're not going to be able to jump back through the hoops that you need to do to keep going? There's a commercial that was out years ago called Verbal Advantage. You can have a verbal advantage in what you say and also how you say it. In fact, some people call it open mouth disease. Yeah, have you ever been around people that as soon as they open their mouth, you know that a bunch of nastiness is going to come out? Or are people around you that know that when you open your mouth, good things are going to come out of your mouth, encouraging things? If you ever get a chance to watch Joel Osteen on TV, he's a preacher of a church in Texas, and every single service that he gets up and speaks, you never, ever, ever hear anything negative come out of his mouth. Not one time. It's 100% positive stuff. Do people around you, are they drawn to your words? Are they drawn to your encouragement? Or do they want to stay away from you because you're so negative all the time? I worked with people, oh my gosh, I worked with people over the years that were just so negative in everything they did. It was a sunny day, oh, it's too bright, I can't see, I need my sunglasses. If it's raining, oh my gosh, it's raining. Well, I had a sales rep years ago in the 90s. I was training, and that day she was supposed to schedule appointments for us to go see about insurance stuff. So I came in that morning, and she came in, and I said, how many appointments have you scheduled for us for today? Because that was her job. Her job was to schedule the appointments. That's it. My job was to go out and explain to her how we help people. So she comes in. I says, how many appointments did you schedule for the day? She says, I didn't schedule any. I said, what? She said, I didn't schedule any. I said, why? Well, it's raining outside. What? You mean you didn't schedule appointments today because it's raining outside? What's that have to do with doing your job? So all that day I was really bent out of shape, because by the fact that she didn't do her job, then I couldn't do my job. How many times haven't you been in situations when because other people haven't done their job, it impacted your job? And the tendency is to just unload on them. I had to walk away multiple times that day because I just wanted to, I was just upset. Let me be kind. Because my day was already scheduled. My day was planned out to do things to help her. But she chose to take the easy road and complain that it was raining. Over in the Old Testament, in the book of Proverbs, a paraphrase of the text says this. It says, "Reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise bring healing." Let me share it again. Proverbs 12:18. "Reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." A few verses down, it says this, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit." Now, granted, there's a person might grumble and complain about their lot in life and bad things that happen to them. I get it, been there, done that, will be there, and do that. But oftentimes, people will not be attracted to you because of the ugliness that you allow to come out of your mouth. So you look around you and you think, why don't I have any friends? Why don't people want to hang around me? Why don't I, have a following in some form from people that other people have a following? Well, maybe it's your attitude. Maybe it's how you carry yourself, what you allow to come out of your mouth. Do you always talk about the glass as being half empty? Do you complain about stuff that's going on in your life? Most of you know that our daughter Juliana struggled with cancer 8 times before she passed away in October 2016. And almost every time she kept getting back up again over and over and over again. I mean, she's the strongest human being I've ever met, by far. And she passed away at age 14. So if somebody that can struggle with cancer 8 times in the span of 9 years, then you and I really don't have that much to complain about. So what you allow that will come out of your mouth can literally determine how you think. Let me say that maybe a little differently. What you allow to come out of your mouth will dictate to what your mind thinks. And what your mind thinks then dictates what you do. It's almost as if you have to play mind games with yourself. I would venture to say that many days you need to play mind games with yourself. Because if you want to get past the hurdles in your world and in your life and in your workplace and in your family, then you have to, it sounds probably bizarre, but you almost have to talk yourself into an attitude that's going to pull you through it. Is it easy? No, absolutely not. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. Is it sometimes overwhelming in the middle of your stuff? Without question. But what you do, and more so what you say in the middle of that struggle, can either help you or it can literally break you down in a way that is destructive. Charlie Parker, the great jazz saxophonist, said this: "If you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn." Listen again. If you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn. Again, he was a jazz saxophonist. So poorly chosen words can kill enthusiasm. Have you ever been around people when you're trying to attempt something great or at least extraordinary in your own mind, and people just pull you down and try to get you all discouraged and humped over and just want to quit, instead of the people that lift you up and to pull you forward? In fact, poorly chosen words can really impact your own self-esteem and lower your expectations. But well-chosen words can motivate and they can offer hope. They can create vision, and they can impact your thinking in a way that you cannot believe. In fact, in my office, I have an office at home, an office in another area, and I have words and quotes and sayings around me all the time because I tend to forget. I tend to forget the most simple things, the little memory joggers, the little encouragements, the little words of inspiration that I need to read consistently in order to keep me focused and away from the negativeness, if you will, if that's a word, that wants to drag me down and stop me in my tracks. The words of Rudyard Kipling, he kind of comes to mind in my notes. He said this: words are, of course, the most powerful drug used by mankind. Again, words are, of course, the most powerful drug used by mankind. You can literally change the way you behave by changing the words that you use. Words can pick you up, words can tear you down. And what's crazy about all this is you have control over the words that come out of your mouth. You don't necessarily have control over the words that go in your ears, because society and other people, they don't necessarily care about those words. Let me give you another example. That's why I stopped watching the local news years ago. You know why? Because 80-90% of it was all bad news. So why would I want to invade my mind before I go to bed at night with bad news? For me, that just doesn't make sense. I can't speak for you, but for me, I stopped that 10, 15 years ago. Because it wasn't helping me. It wasn't pushing me forward. It was dragging me down. So I'm going to encourage you today, as I end up the show, that you can have more control over the words that come out of your mouth than you can think. I want to remind you again to lengthen the distance between the stimulus and the response. Lengthen the time between when you want to lash out in negativity and the time when you actually open your mouth. Sometimes that takes some time to get that through, but you are in control of what comes out of your mouth. My name is John Carver, and I appreciate you watching the show. Thanks.